Welcome to the place of rest, where our aim is to give you language that helps you displace the growing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease of our times. My name is Jonathan Boyce, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today's episode. Virginia continues a conversation with Dr. Randall Bixby to discuss the importance of men choosing to live in alignment with their identity, design, and purpose, and the immense consequences that has on every sphere of influence. We hope you enjoy today's conversation.
Randy, thank you for joining me for another segment.
Thank you.
Why, in your observation, are men important, more important than ever, I might say, in stabilizing the mental and spiritual health of a family? Whether you're a father, a son, a husband, a nephew, I think men are of immense value. And what we need from them now is so specific. And I'd like to hear you speak to that.
What an important question. And it really speaks to identity, design, and purpose in my thinking. So if we can come to the place where we recognize that men, husbands, fathers, there's actually a design to it. You know, I use this silly illustration, but you don't use a real sharp steak knife as a toothbrush. If you do, it's going to be a bloody mess. It's not going to do the job very well, and you're going to create a lot more problems that have to be healed up. And in some ways, as silly as that sounds, that is the man who doesn't know who he is, doesn't know why he's here, and doesn't know what his purpose is, what his design is. We go through, stumbling through like a steak knife through life, and really what we're doing is creating a lot more wounds, and we're not hitting the mark. And so why is it important is because we were designed to show up a certain way as a man and as a father and as a husband. And so this is the work that we do. If I know that as a man, my responsibility is to, and this comes from my own worldview, but I'll tell you, it is solid. The word father means source. Interesting. And so, as a father is a source of what? Well, a source of life, truth, provision, protection. Not that he doesn't need a spouse, not that he doesn't need a mother, that's not the point. The point is, in man's design, he's supposed to be a picture of a heavenly father. That's my worldview. And that looks like love, patience, kindness, gentleness. It looks like you step up and take the personal responsibility that we have been entrusted with, because we're going to give an account for it. And in that, what we do as a man is we show up that way. So if a man is not healthy, doesn't know that, doesn't know his design, doesn't know his purpose, or doesn't know how to do it, then we avoid problems instead of addressing problems in love.
Yep.
Well, there's a jab to the cheek that's a big another mess, because if I ignore problems, what happens? They get bigger, they get more, and they fester, and it's more trauma. So that's weakness, not strength. You know, when I'm not vulnerable as a man and share who I really am, what I'm really thinking emotionally, and then nobody really knows me. And here's the thing, when I choose as a man, as a husband and a father, when I choose not to be vulnerable, you know what happens? The rest of my family follows that and says, well, it's not safe here. We can't be vulnerable either.
That's right.
Dad doesn't share what he's... I've learned this, and we put this into our work. We structure intentional family conversations. I go first, and I share as deeply and as vulnerably as I possibly can. And then when we flip it to our other, to Leslie or to the kids, and they're adults now, they share just as vulnerably, because I've determined already it's safe here, and I'm going first, and this is the level of our conversation. And that is not weakness. It's foolishness to take your definition of purpose and design as a man from culture. It's ludicrous. What happens is it's so confused, it's so deceived, that it leads to lawlessness. And I went to a big jump there. I get that.
And destruction. It's destructive for you, for the people you love, for your companies, by the way, for your institution,
Yeah,
for everything. And we're seeing it. We're seeing the fruit of that.
totally. And so this is in the family context. I'm talking on you bringing in other. Yeah, how I show up as a man will determine so much of what I impact around me.
And I want to add this, Randy, because this is so important. And what happens in your family, not just in your family, it echoes in how you show up in every sphere of influence. I don't
For
care what
sure.
car you drive, how many homes you have, and how many hundreds of $1 million you have in the bank. The emperor has no clothes kind of dynamic. You're not fooling
Yeah.
anything or anybody.
Yeah.
And there's so much brokenness in our time and in our society and in our children and our families. And we're coming from so much brokenness, all of us, that
Is
you
it?
step into a room, and I'm telling you right now, they might not have the words you and I have to describe what's happening, but trust is breached. And there's
Yeah.
not engagement, and there isn't possible intimacy or faith in what's the transactions that are happening in that given situation, because that brokenness, we're carrying it with us. And we need to, people like us need to rise up and be strong and courageous and trying to identify what's happening to all of us and say,
Yes.
hey, you're not hiding anything, you're not avoiding. You talked about avoidance, and I want to say rage, anger, resentment, judgment, this conventional narcissism term that I hate that keeps going around as if there's no resolution for it. But yeah, avoidance is one, but all these other manifestations are no less revealing to the brokenness
Right.
that's really happening inside of you.
Yeah. And here's a saying, another one that we use, and it's this: how we do anything is how we do everything at some level. So if who I am shows up everywhere. I mean, no. I have it. I have it siloed. I have it partitioned. Right. Men compartmentalize. Well, while that might be some truth to that, the fact is, because it's coming out of my heart, it colors like a lens everything I see everywhere. How I do anything is how I do everything. This is why men are important in stabilizing the mental and spiritual health of the family for this reason. That if, as they lead, if we create safe, trusting, loving, supportive, kind, gentle cultures in our home, in our workplace, then guess what? Everybody, a rising tide floats all ships. Everybody will see, oh, that's how it is here. I like this. Well, I'm going to be that way then. It's amazing, actually. And if we don't, if we fail to, and it comes down to every man, every woman's choice, this isn't just for men, but this is for men, for sure. And I wanted to say this. In design, men and women are to be one, right? That's the idea with marriage anyway.
That's right.
With the institution of marriage. What does that mean? That word one in the ancient text actually means mutually indwelling. It means there's nothing separating. So there's nothing off limits. I have no secrets. I'm an open book. I don't hide. I don't, blame. I don't cover. Like I'm accessible. When a man shows up like that, when a woman shows up like that, it changes the nature of the relationship and intimacy. It changes the nature of the culture, the family, of the home. It absolutely disciples and mentors our children to step up into that kind of openness. And it really is a powerful choice to be one. And I see that predominantly is the responsibility of a man in a marriage. That's my view. It's both people, without a doubt. And as a man humbles himself and is transparent, which is a sign of strength, not weakness, then boy, does that shift things in the marriage, in the culture of the home, at work, and so forth.
I just echo 100% everything you said. During the course of a 43-year marriage, there's been many, many highs and there's been many lows. There's many ups, downs. There's many sharp turns. There's many very gradual turns. But you basically have to face many of the dimensions that you're talking about. Each partner
Build
has
it.
to. But I will tell you that the spine of our marriage has been Ray's commitment to not quit and to show up. Broken, bludgeoned sometimes,
Authentic.
but authentic. But I know, and sometimes not so authentic. Sometimes covering, hiding, and blaming. It's not pretty. Marriage is not pretty. I don't know when the heck we've romanticized this whole institution. The foundational institution of society is a marriage between a man and a
Yes.
woman, and the
Yes.
institution of the family. And by the way, anatomy bears witness for itself. That's how families advanced, right? And produced.
Yep.
But I will say that what you're saying is so important, and I want people to be encouraged by it. Not just what you're saying, but what I'm saying without disparaging anything or anybody. It's not pretty. It is a process. It requires long suffering. It requires patience. It requires kindness, first to yourself and then each other. Understand your own limitations and extend yourself grace to grow through these things. Do you want to say anything about that?
I just want to graciously add this caveat, if I may. Marriage inside of design is easy. It's wonderful.
Yes.
It's marriage outside of design is everything you described and more.
That's right. And when we show up in marriage as people of faith with good intentions, as you did, you can still be blindsided by a lot of things you didn't understand.
Very
And
much.
so sometimes we think we're in the scope and we're doing things right. But what do they say? The path to hell is paved with good intentions. If we're not willing to continuously examine ourselves in the context of our conflicts, maybe, and in the context of the confusion, chaos, and disease, to really determine what part am I playing in this. Ray and I stayed up and talked till 2:30 in the morning last night. And it was one of those times after almost a decade of really hitting an impasse on many things, Randy, to be fully transparent. But I feel like, wow, this is amazing. We profoundly communicated and he profoundly listened to me. And I profoundly listened to him.
Wonderful.
Like we did 35, 40 years ago.
Oh.
You know, that's amazing. But
Yeah.
it's a fight to protect, to secure, to circle the wagon, to really rise up and do the hard work of building something. It is not a pretty journey.
Yeah, no, I agree. And 100%. The thing is most of our battle is with ourselves.
Yes.
And governing how we think and dealing with our unmet expectations and dealing with our heartaches and dealing with, and that's all my work for me. You know, what works in relationship, I know we're talking about Father's Day, we've got some other questions to get to, but what works in a relationship is when both people take 100% responsibility for everything as much as it depends on them.
That's right.
I have all kinds of work to do to fix my relationship by working on me.
By the way,
and so does my
this
wife.
is the universal principle, right? You take this to every you know, when you're a business owner, you understand this principle in running a business and having a huge company or small company. It won't survive without that. Why would a marriage or a family survive without you doing the same thing at home?
Correct.
What is lost in society, especially in the day and age in which we find ourselves, if and when men fail to stand strong? If men do not rise up, specifically, I say men, I love what you said about the vulnerability. When you have a meeting, you launch, you lead with full disclosure, full vulnerability, meekness, strength under control, right? And you are transparent where within and among your family for the sake of your family. That's leadership, right? But if men don't rise up and do this and lead the way, I believe it will be impossible to heal the hemorrhaging heart of our nation. Is that an overstatement?
No, I think it's that and so things. But without that, you're exactly right.
What's
What
the
is
and?
lost? Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the
What is
and is
lost?
that
And then tell
that.
us what the, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what's lost? Let's go for start. There's a lot that's lost. I'll try to be brief, but let's go right back to those ancient manuscripts in Genesis
Yes.
chapter 3. What happened when confusion came and deception came to the woman? The man just went along with it, was passive. And what's lost when men are not true to design and stand up in the character and nature, I'm going to say this, of our Father, of the designer,
Yeah.
then one of the first things to go is intentionality and leadership. Instead, this passivity comes in. I'll just, it'll be okay. I'll go along with it. We'll figure it out later. Somebody else. And that, I mean, it didn't have to be that way. Now, I know that, there's some repercussions if, in the storyline, if the woman would have eaten and the man didn't and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is this plays out every day, all day for men all over the world in marriages and families and companies. And there's a sweet spot, and it's design. So in design, I take personal responsibility, and I would have, I find out what's the highest truth, what's going to bring the best good to all, and that's what I'm going to apply my will and effort toward bringing into my marriage, into my family, into my business, into who I vote for. That is my responsibility as a man, and that's healthy. Now you can go the one side I'm mentioning where I'm passive. No big deal. It'll work out. Or I can go way the other side. I'm going to control everything and manipulate everything. I can try to do it all myself, and that's outside of design as well. And we could go on and on and on about the spectrum and where you go too far on either way, and you create more problems. But there is a sweet spot of design. So if men don't stand up, we lose intentionality, we lose leadership, we lose. If Father is source. And so, as a man in a family, you're both a husband and likely a parent, a father. And so when we step out of that design, then we really lose. I'm going to say this. Everybody ends up doing what's right in their own eyes. This is my belief. A man is responsible to get back to the truth, to become the truth, and then to lead from the truth. And when a man does that, in a marriage, the way it's designed, he does it with love. He does it gently. He does it, together. He does it. It's not manipulated. He restores graciously. And right when we come in the true design of being a man, everything that we need to lead well in our family, which then affects culture down. Here's the bottom line: our kids will grow up, and they will lead. They'll be the decision makers. They'll be the politicians and the business, and they will lead according to their character, whatever's been formed in them.
So good, Randy.
We have so many people that want to gift healing to their friends and family members. Due to popular request, we've officially created the Gift of Rest package for purchase. Please go to theplaceofrest.com/wholeness packages to view the Gift of Rest. If you've been listening to our podcast regularly and are now wondering, what's next, or how can I get more support? Our Day of Rest course is available to support you in your pilgrimage. Use the promo code PODCAST, all lowercase, to receive a 10% discount for our introductory Day of Rest course. Now back to the show.
So rich, so good. I want to say that in the first 25, 30 years of my marriage, Ray represented sensitivity, kindness, meekness. And when he
What a
came
gift.
home, we knew that, okay, Dad's home now. But it was done with sensitivity. Now, I want to say this to men. If you find your identity in your role, in your vocation, in your performance, even as that, you will be destroyed by your
Yes.
very good intentions. And I say this because I
Yes.
see this every day behind closed doors. I've experienced measures of this amazing human being that I married and this great man. Our best intentions are not sufficient to take us through the finish line. Hence, you will hit a season, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that may take your breath away and you may not survive. And Randy, I think that's why I love what you shared in the last segment. You showed up doing all those things. I know you, I know what you're about. You showed up doing all those things. It wasn't enough.
Yep.
What is enough? Because there again, a man's identity might say check, 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 check. And a woman might be listening to this saying, my husband does all those things, but I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. There's still a hole, there's a vacuum in my marriage, but yet we check all the lists you said, because I think, so I wanted you to bring back that point of identity. If you're still finding your identity in just that, it's not enough to carry you to the finish line.
No, so the and part, right? So it's the man that needs to be intentional and step up, take responsibility, and be who he's created. And out from him then flows life the way it's designed. But the and part of that is so does the wife, so does the woman. She's got 100% responsibility to do the same thing, right? Because she's the daughter of parents, then a broken family, perhaps, and she's experienced brokenness, and there are things in her that are in part of her design that are her responsibility to step into. We have the complementarian view of marriage where we're equal, that we submit one to another, that while, that we make decisions as one. Who's responsible to decide? The one is. Both of us as one in agreement. Who's responsible to fix this? The one is. Who's to blame? The one is. Like, we see this, and where there's nothing separating, nothing off limits, that we do things as one together, that my mind and her mind are actually the one's mind. And so if we can, with emotional health, if we can be able to be curious and not assume and not judge and bring the benefit of a conversation and all the fears and all the doubts and all the whatever, and bring them in and resolve them and come into a place of understanding and oneness, then we are powerful. And that's design. So the and part of this is, it's the woman has her journey in this as well, and becoming one and taking care of her side of the check marks, if you will. And that's possible. That's the good news.
Yep. How would you advise men to respond to the growing war on their constitution, on their very identity, on their masculinity?
Yeah, well, here's where we go with that we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. We have to think differently than we think right now. That's just the bottom line. And I don't just mean with our brain. I'm talking with our being, our mind being my soul, my mind, will, emotion, spirit, like with all of me. So here's the thing. Transformation starts with, number one, a revelation. Revelation, some people would call it awareness or self-awareness, and that's good. But revelation is more good. It's better. Revelation knowledge supersedes natural or common knowledge. It doesn't negate natural or common knowledge, but it's greater. It comes from a source that's greater than just man's thinking, as great as that might be. And so when I have a revelation of thinking that's out of agreement with my design, I'll use my example. My identity is my performance. Let's say that's the thinking. When my thinking is that way, I don't know that it's creating all these problems. I think it's the right way. I think it's the way it should be. Until I have a revelation that, whoa, that thinking is causing me pain and problems, and that's that steak knife. And then I have a revelation of the thinking that disagrees with design, disagrees with God, my worldview. Then I have to have another revelation of a new way of thinking that's the truth, the higher transcendent truth that is solid, that will heal, that will restore, that will take me to... I have not just a knowledge like, I think I ought to think different. No, I mean a revelation that, wow, one way of thinking is leading to terrible results, lawlessness. Ultimately, if you go all the way down the train through the generations and through culture, we have lawlessness right now because we have chosen to keep thinking in ways that disagree with our design. And so I got to have a revelation of the wrong thinking, if you call it wrong, have a revelation of the truth. Then I need to take personal responsibility for how I choose to think. This is transformation. Repentance, you said. When I disagree with one way of thinking, and from the depths of my being and all of my being, I make an agreement with a new way of thinking. My identity is based on who I am and whose son I am. Wow, that's totally different than identity. And I choose to believe that. And then third, I now begin to live. I become that new way of thinking. Here's what we recognize, you know this. We actually become what we believe. Life happens from us, not to us. Here's another proverb. As a person thinks in their heart, or down here in their subconscious, so are they. And so, wow, we become what we believe. We embody our beliefs. So you say, well, I don't like the state of my marriage. I don't like the state of my finances. I don't like the state of my children. I don't like the state of our country. Well, guess what? What we don't like is a result from a choice to think a certain way that disagrees with the highest good. And so what would I say about men? I would say, get revelation. Get around teaching like you offered, Virginia. Get around some of the tools maybe that we offered. And at a heart level, begin to get revelation about what way you're choosing to think, and a different way to think that'll change everything. In your marriage, in your family.
Somebody might ask, how do I get it? You gotta desire it. Desire it. Seek it. Ask for it. Pursue it. Don't wait for something to just happen to you. Become curious about the things Randy is saying. That's how you get revelation. 3 quick questions. I know we're running out of time. Quick fire questions. How can men build strong relationships with their wife? Most practical way.
Number 1, be one. Open up. Be vulnerable. Stop the secrets. Stop the partitions. Be open to being transparent and being vulnerable, and the intimacy level will rise. Now, you think, well, that's going to be dangerous. It might be. And if you don't take that on, it's not going to change. Until you decide enough's enough, and you're going to be open, and you're going to be safe, and you're going to be vulnerable, and you start to live that way, nothing's going to change.
That's right.
Secondly, I would say take personal responsibility and work on you. You want to build a strong relationship with your wife, work on your stuff. Stop blaming her. Stop giving excuses or tit for tat. Well, you did this and I'll do. This is practical, down and dirty stuff here. But come on, here's the thing. Love each other. Go to the scriptures. I would go Corinthians 13, love is patient. Start there. Love is kind. How about that? Love doesn't keep a record of wrongs. How about destroying all the old files that you keep on your spouse or on yourself? Let's just get rid of those. Let's start fresh. Love is patient, kind, doesn't keep a record of wrongs. It always trust. Let's build trust. How do you build trust? Well, you be vulnerable for one. That builds trust. You let people see your weaknesses, and you take a risk to do that. It lets me say, you know what, if you're going to tell me your weaknesses, I'll tell you mine.
So good. We're really the greatest danger to ourselves. While you're speaking,
True.
I'm thinking, we really are the greatest danger to ourselves, not another person.
Yeah.
They're not our problem, we are. How can fathers build strong and healthy relationships with their children in the most practical ways?
Transform your thinking. I am responsible for the culture and the environment in my family, including my wife and my children. There you go, men. Start with that. You are responsible. The culture isn't responsible. Your wife's not solely responsible. The church or some other education system, they're not responsible. Stop giving the responsibility away and abdicating your role to create what it is you say you want, healthy relationships. So what that looks like is I get intentional and I get some learning, I get some tools, and I decide that my home and my relationship, and this matters whatever age, adult children, young children, I am going to be safe. You will never pay a price for sharing your heart with me. Wow.
So
that
good.
alone will shift the home. You'll be safe, you'll be loving, you'll be trusting. Listen, you want to improve your relationship with your kids, mom, dad? Keep your promises. Keep your word. Keep your agreements. What happens when, I'll read that book to you, and you don't? You lose trust. You want good relationship with your kids? No relationship works without trust. Keep your agreements. Yeah, we're going to go play catch, play ball after dinner. Go play ball after dinner, or don't say it. I'm just telling you, this is straight, right? I'm encouraged by a lot of mothers. I know there's a mama bear movement out there, mothers that are taking on the education system at a local level for the garbage that is being input into our kids. And those women are taking responsibility for the shaping of the minds of their children. Wonderful. I'd love to see more dads involved. And why did I jump outside of a home or family context? Is because this is huge. Education and media are discipling our kids today. And if you like the way it's going, just leave it alone. But if you don't like the way it's going, I certainly don't. We better do something more about it. And this is something we can do. But we need to create a safe, loving, here's one, fun. When's the last time your family had fun?
Yeah.
Some of you know all the time. A lot of families anymore don't have fun. Why do you want to have fun? Well, it opens up the play center and the learning center and the discovery center in our brains and causes us to experience new things in new ways that really stick. What you remember is the times where you belly laughed so hard because of some crazy game you played, and it bonded you. It brought you closer through that experience. So safe, fun, loving, trusting. Work on the culture in your home by keeping your agreements, by making it safe, by choosing to be vulnerable. I mean, there's a few. Those are all really practical.
So many things are running through my mind as you're speaking. And for some reason, something that's resonating with me is to speak to the people who say, this sounds great. And I get it. But I want to say there is no but. If your husband or your spouse, in this case, husbands, but either, are far from this thinking, that really can be completely irrelevant to the joy you can begin to experience and the success you can begin to experience in every area of your life, I might add, if you apply these principles for yourself. As you close us out, I want you to just give hope to people that find themselves in that situation. And also those that have been married a long time to, I think, apply that same principle as begin with you. We tend to hear things like this and we think, I got to send this to somebody else. So-and-so has to hear this. No, you have to hear this. I have to hear this. Although this is around men and the immense respect and value that I have for the men in my life, my husband, my sons, began with my father, though, my imperfect, flawed father, began with him. So the value, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, I just think down my family line, right? The value and the role and the significance. It's not because they were perfect. It's not because they did everything right, but I see their immense value. I'd like you to, as we close, to encourage everyone, no matter where you find yourself, in the middle, on the front, on the end of disaster, in the beginning of a marriage, and the of a short marriage, and the end of a very long marriage. Find hope. I want people to find hope in the things you're saying, because these are universal principles that I think can be instrumental for all of us. But I think we can begin to honor the men in our life also in different ways as a result of them.
A thought, and then I close with hope. You mentioned your father I know the last question we didn't get to, what about someone who's about to become a father for the first time? And I wanted to say this, and this is hope. If you can even think beyond yourself, whatever restoration or reconciliation you choose to do right now will affect your generations. And that matters. I had this revelation one time of God looking at me, but when he looked at me, he saw all the generations past and all the generations future.
Yes.
While he looked at me, because they're resident in me and in you. And it really caused me to think deeply. And here's the bottom line. Why not fix things while it's your time on the clock? And this is where we go with families. This is hope. If one person changes, things change. Now, maybe it doesn't go from what it is now to perfect, but when one person deals with their own stuff, deals with the generational stuff like that Virginia does so amazing work with, the reconciling. When you deal with your stuff currently, your kids are the benefactors. And this is the hope. It is not too late. There's plenty of time. I mean, none of us know how much time, but as much as it depends on today and right now, it's amazing how much advance you can have when you ask for forgiveness and truly repent. I am so sorry for showing up this way, and I commit to not show up that way anymore. And then you don't. Wow, that can accelerate restoration so quickly, not just for you, not just for now, but for the future. And this is our hope in our work with our family and our kids and the families we work with is, hey, while it's your time on the clock, let's do everything we can for our generations forward to be whole and healed and blessed and be equipped to be able to take these lessons and tools and processes into our children so that they can pass them on to their children, so that there is a real shot that we don't repeat all of the mess that we just cleaned up. So there is hope. We see it almost every day of testimonies of people that just decided, enough's enough. Today's my day. I'm going to change me. I'm going to work on it. And it begins a healing, reconciling process that absolutely begins to restore the family to design. It's not too late.
Wow. Thank you for closing us with that. That was powerful. Thank you so much, Randy.
Thanks for the opportunity, Virginia.
We trust that listening to today's episode has brought you closer to experiencing the freedom of wholeness and healing. If you have comments or questions about today's episode, or for updates about R.E.S.T, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia, or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.